Hello, happiness abounder, and welcome back. As we wrap up this week all about self-leadership, I want to talk about something I think that we tend to brush aside, and that's listening to your intuition and trusting yourself. Part of being a leader to others is being trusted, and what you say has a weight and an authority to it. But when it comes to ourselves, we put the weight and the authority in the negative self-talk and not necessarily the intuition. Or not necessarily the, what about this? Now, in a true leadership format, I want to share a story of how I led some others, but I had to listen to my intuition and trust myself to even get to that point. So, at work, there was what we call a fire drill. And something was thrown towards my team, kind of thrown over the fence by the client, and said, here, take it and run. I was in all-day meetings, and my team lead is the one who would run this kind of stuff. So I said, hey, you feel equipped? You got it? Yeah, absolutely no problem. Perfect. I went on my way. Well, I came to check in towards the end of the day, like, hey, how's that going? Are we going to be able to get it over in time? And because I'd been in meetings all day and felt bad, it's like, how can I help? And turns out it was just a storm, a nightmare, where everyone thought it needed to be done a different way, and everyone had thoughts and opinions, and those thoughts and opinions combated with each other, so people were getting offended, people were getting upset. We all had a timeline we need to go on for this, and it just was not working. So I came in and was like, okay, what can we do to fix this right now? And so we did what we needed to do. And we got it out the door, and it was like, whew, okay. The next morning, everyone is still up in arms about how poorly that was executed, how so-and-so said X, Y, and Z, and that was super upsetting, and now I don't want to work with that person, and just the list kind of went on, which is all fair. It was a very stressful situation with a very young team who hadn't been in that situation before, and I'd been in situations like that before, but I had trusted my team lead to take it and handle it because I was unavailable in a last minute, like, toss over the fence, which probably wasn't the best setup. I'm learning too, right? So everyone's up in arms, and it's like, okay, well, how do we make this so it's okay? How do we make it so we can move past it? And intuitively, I had this thought that we are going to have everyone in a meeting. Everyone sit down, they're in this meeting, and every person has 5 minutes to talk, which is kind of a long time, right? Everyone has 5 minutes to talk. The rules around this is no interrupting. So if you are not the person talking, you are listening and you are not interrupting. No call outs, positive or negative, for anyone else on the team. Like, it's just sharing your experience of it. And at the end of your 5 minutes, you have to offer a solution so that this doesn't happen again. And I'd never, ever, ever been in a meeting like that before. I've never had a leader tell me to do a meeting like that before. And it just purely came out of my intuition. And I went, okay, we're doing it, trusting myself. So we sit down in this room, and everyone gets 5 minutes. And the interesting thing is that everyone was so up in arms and so upset and had so much to say, but most of them couldn't complete the 5 minutes. Like, once they got it out, they got it out. And if there was no blaming anyone or no picking sides because someone did a good job, no call outs, positive or negative, and you weren't interrupted, so you didn't feel like you weren't getting heard, and you had to come up with a solution so it wasn't just a gripe fest. By the end of this, everyone was heard, everyone felt good about what we were going to do for our next steps, and we were able to move on and take it as a learning experience instead of harboring it with resentment and being afraid it would happen again. Now, I don't share that story to be like, I am an amazing leader of other people. No, it felt like pure luck that I had that thought of, this is how this meeting needs to run. And it felt like pure luck because there was no articles, there were no YouTube videos, there were no LinkedIn videos, articles, social posts. There was no one that I bounced this idea off of. There was no one that said, what if you did this? It came to me from nowhere. So it felt like pure luck. But I had to look at it like, okay, I need to trust my intuition on this. I'm going to trust my gut. Like, this feels like it's the right direction to take. And I'm going to trust myself that I can contain a meeting like that where people are going to be very high emotion and very energetic and passionate about what they think and their perspective and their views on these things. How can I contain it in a way where it stops after the meeting, right? That passion and that love goes forward, the culture moves forward, the projects move forward, but the resentment, the anger, the frustration does not. And I had to trust myself to be able to step into that space. Now, again, that's leading other people, but following my intuition and trusting myself was the only way that was going to happen in that specific circumstance and situation. Here's the thing. If I hadn't been leading my own life myself, and if I hadn't been trying to tap into those gut feelings, those thoughts that come in that are quiet, but impactful and powerful, if I hadn't been learning to trust myself and to dive headfirst into stuff that I'm like, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I have this thought and let's try it. If I hadn't been doing the self-leadership work, my ability to lead others in that situation would have been non-existent. I wouldn't have known what to do. I would have stumbled through it way worse than I did, and I can't even say what the impact might have been, in probably a negative direction. So it all starts and all comes back to self-leadership. It comes back to following your intuition, trusting yourself, trusting your gut, right? If the word intuition is a little too woo-woo for you, trusting your gut, those initial thoughts that come into your head that are positive, or like, what if we tried this? Those are the things to follow. Those are the things to trust and explore. So how do you do that? Obviously, in the moment, you want to have been able to cultivate being able to hear that thought come through and to trust yourself in the actual situation. So that means groundwork and doing it a lot. So as always, I know I recommend this for everything, but journal. Journal. Because it gives you a chance to hear the voice. It gives you a chance to listen to the thoughts and the language that you have. And it gives you a chance to identify what's more intuition-based, what's more social pressure-based, what's more negative, what's more positive. But you can only do that if you start to listen, and to listen, maybe has to have an outlet. So I highly recommend journaling. Next thing, sitting in silence. I'm not going to say necessarily straight up meditating, because that's a lot of like come back to breath, right? But sitting in silence and just letting your mind kind of go for a minute and then bringing it back. Letting it go for a minute and then bringing it back. And doing that a few times. Because you start to identify what works, what doesn't work, and what's intuitive and what is negative. And you need to be able to identify between the two to really step into trusting your intuition. So that's 2 very quick tips on how to follow your intuition. And when you can start to do that, and you can start to listen to yourself, and you actually have good ideas, which you will, you can start to trust yourself. And when you can follow your intuition, trust your gut, and you can trust yourself to act on and make decisions quickly and decisively, that is self-leadership. So as we wrap up this week, a few quick reminders. Don't miss your meetings with yourself. Set up time for yourself and lead your life in a way you would if you were leading it for anyone else. Understand that not every thought is a fact, and that you need to identify the difference between your intuition and negativity. Make sure you focus on your emotional management so that you can be fully aware to lead yourself in the right direction. Adjust your body language so that you can feel empowered and trick your brain into believing and remembering you are a leader. And follow your intuition and trust yourself. So I'm going to leave you with that today. I hope that you liked this theme week, and if you did, please let me know. Rate, review, and subscribe on your podcast listening platform of choice. And above everything else, remember, you are capable of happiness abound.